Hey everybody, it's Steve with Real Progress in Action, and tonight Real Progressives as well. For those of you all who have followed us for some time, you know that our focus is hyper-focus on enabling the progressive agenda and understanding the economics that drives that agenda to be. We're at a different place right now. We're at a place of national disaster, a national emergency, something that in my almost 51 years, I've never experienced. I suspect none of you all have experienced, at least in the United States. And those of you who are immigrants to this great nation or people who are watching from other countries around the world who have been through war and other such things, I'm sure you've experienced something like this. But this is something that's happening around the world right now. I think all of us globally can kind of appreciate the lockdown and so forth that is occurring. But I want to talk about something very specific, and this has caused a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of fighting, a lot of people reflexively saying, you're wrong, shut up, I don't like what you're saying. And I want to make sure that you understand a very important thing. We're going to talk at length. This is not going to be a short live stream. This is going to be a big, huge thing. I have no idea how long it's going to take, but I want to walk through it an awful lot tonight. Right now, we've got production brought to a standstill. Most people have been ordered to go home, to be home. Now, some places allow some telework, so there are some things going on. The vast majority of people, they're home now. The schools shut down. The sports leagues shut down. Many state capitals and governments shut down except for essential people, whatever that means. The fact of the matter is the roadways are largely clear. A lot of people are simply not going to work. There isn't any kind of production in the economy right now. So one of the big things that came out some time back was Paul Ryan fighting with Alan Greenspan about Social Security. And Alan Greenspan was telling Paul Ryan that there's absolutely nothing preventing the United States government from creating as many dollars as it wants to, provided there is an economy there with the production to meet demand. Now, Alan Greenspan is a parasitical right-wing guy, but his words were true nonetheless. In this moment of clarity, he's telling Paul Ryan, who is desperately trying to privatize Social Security, he's trying to tell him, hey, Alan, help me out here, bro. We're both right-wingers, man. Isn't this something we should do? Shouldn't we privatize Social Security and leave it in the hands of Wall Street? And, Alan Greenspan said, well, there's nothing about Social Security whatsoever that is insolvent. We can print as much money, we can create as much money, we can spend as much money as we want to, provided we can create an economy that has the real resources available for purchase. I say all that so you understand what I'm talking about. Modern monetary theory talks about the fact that the one thing that the government doesn't have any issue with is finance. There's never an issue of how to pay for it. This is why this entire debate about the presidential elections, about how are you going to pay for this and how are you going to pay for that, was a completely fraudulent question. It was a question steeped in lies and mythology, complete ignorance, but it was intentional. And here we are now in a national emergency. And people like Yang are coming out of the woodwork trying to hump their UBI proposal. We need to infuse money into the economy. We have a problem with having not enough money in the economy. We got to put more money in the economy. Then we have others that are saying, well, wait a minute, hold on. Maybe we need to pay people to stay home and not go to work so that we don't infect everyone. There's all these ideas floating around. And none of them by themselves tells you the whole story. So understand this. There is no production right now, and nowhere near enough production to meet the demand of just current needs. All you have to do is go to Walmart or any of your other stores, and you'll see this right here to my other side. This right here, over here, this way. Nope, this way. is what Walmart looks like. That's the toilet paper section. A lot of people are hoarding it. A lot of people are out there like freaking out, buying up all that they can. You got to go to like 12 stores to find it. Do you think this is an issue of not enough cash in the economy? Or do you think there's not enough production to meet demand? Well, if people aren't going to work, how is production of these things going to take place at a scale to meet the need for all the Americans and all the people around the world, frankly, not just in the U.S.? I want you to think about that. So you look at Zimbabwe, because, when we weren't in a national crisis, every loser in the world would say something about, what are you going to do, print more money? Well, you have Zimbabwe, ha, 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 right? The ignorance was astounding how stupid they were. But now we're in a crisis. And suddenly everybody's a UBI fan. But the problem is we go back to the Zimbabwe example, and the Zimbabwe example is actually pertinent for once. For once, the word Zimbabwe isn't just some stupid right-wing slur. For once, Zimbabwe is a case study in what happens with a tremendous drop in production and then cash following it. It's not an issue of the cash. The cash is really irrelevant. The issue is if you have 100,000 people that need bread, but you only create loaves enough for 5,000, you could have a real problem there, and people are going to be going nuts for a scarce resource. Same thing as when Saudi Arabia cut oil production in a fight with Russia. Think about this for a second. When you don't have enough product to meet demand, there becomes a huge competition for scarce resources. And if everybody suddenly has an infusion of cash, without price controls, without some sort of an anti-gouging law passed, without rationing of some sort, the price will just go sky high to the highest bidder. And this is what causes a collapse in the belief system, if you will, or the economy, the currency. It's like the Confederacy. The Confederacy couldn't enforce a tax. And because they couldn't enforce a tax, the currency became worthless. They were unable to create demand for that dollar. Well, in this case, it's not really about that so much as it's about the fact that we do not have enough of the products and services that we as Americans need. If you look at Medicare for all and things like that, I don't know what the ratio is. I haven't done all the math. But is there enough doctors and lawyers? Well, let's look. Do we, not lawyers, forget lawyers. Do we have enough doctors and nurses, to meet the demand for regular, non-emergency, but regular healthcare services in America? I don't think we do. I think we've purposely rationed out how many people can become doctors in this country, and then we don't have enough. Now we're in the middle of a crisis, and we realize we weren't staffed to handle this. We didn't have the real resources available. And look at the production of the vaccines. Other countries are marshaling that. South Korea, easily 250,000 right away. We're still down in the low number. We've nowhere near the amount of production required to get this out to the people. Why is that? So what do you think if you don't have enough production in the economy? What do you think infusing all this money into the economy is going to do for it? Now, mind you, anything that is purchasable is for sale in U.S. dollars. The United States government can acquire, and it can give for free to its citizens, in case you didn't know that. You want to call this an emergency? Don't push people out to the private markets to try and fend for themselves with giving them a stipend to try to fight. You know, we're being told, hey, guys, if you show up to Walmart at 3 a.m., maybe 3:30, that's when the truck comes in and you might be able to get your toilet paper. No joke. That's not a cash problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, there are many people that are out of work. But you know what the United States government could do right away? It could have passed a federal job guarantee, and we could be doing care work right now to help each other out and mobilize in this very, very dark time. But we didn't do that. Why? I want you to think about it. We didn't do that. Why? People were worried about a UBI because they're like, automation's going to take care of us. Well, does it look like automation's taking care of us now? Why do you think people would say something like that? I want you to understand this is a neoliberal lie, and we're in the middle of a crisis now, and these lies are still hanging over our heads. Now, I don't know how long it's going to be, but let me tell you right now, the United States government today, yesterday, could eliminate all student debt, could eliminate all mortgage debt, could at least pause mortgage debt like Italy's doing. It could make all health care free, literally free, to everyone right now without any problem at all. The only issue would be, do we have enough doctors? Do we have enough nurses? Do we have enough hospital beds? Well, folks like China are able to crank out a hospital, a couple a month. But the United States, we don't do things like that. That'd be too much like right. We got rugged individualism. Here's a UBI, now go fend for yourself in the open market. Because that's freedom, right? Libertarian logic is disgusting, especially in a crisis. Your $1,000 doesn't buy you anything. What are you going to do? Give $1,000 for a roll of toilet paper because you can't find any? I'm just using that as an example. I mean, you can scrub your ass in a shower. But what if you don't have a shower? Bottom line is we don't have production. So eliminate the debts, eliminate the needs, provide food. Oh, wait a minute. What happened to the production? The United States government can marshal any resource it wants. It literally can do these things. But you don't realize it until you're in a crisis. You're busy out there trying to find a market solution to a global pandemic. I want you to think about what moronic neoliberal thinking that is. A market solution in a global pandemic. And our alternative media friends are out there humping a UBI for this stuff, for fuck's sake. A global pandemic with production coming to all. People in Italy are sitting there in their own homes with dead people because they're not allowed to leave the damn house. Seriously, I'm just trying to let you understand. These are extraordinary times, but they expose the extraordinary lie that we've been living under. People are feeling this from rich to the small. Now, I guarantee you the rich people that have all the resources, they're probably doing just fine. But small businesses, mom and pop shops, mid-sized businesses that employ many of your friends and neighbors, they're all struggling right now. There are businesses out there that have no way of doing any business. They're shutting down. Do you think they just need some cash to fill that up? Or do you think they need debt forgiveness? And if they wanted to, the United States government could say, hey, we will pay the paychecks of every single one of your workers until we declare this national emergency over. They could do that. Forget a UBI. But again, I tell you, would it not be better? Because again, this picture here tells you everything you need to know. Our nation is not prepared for something like this because people have not wanted to focus on it. They've not wanted to focus on climate change. They've not wanted to focus on anything, and it takes a pandemic to get you to wake up and listen and understand. We can afford a Green New Deal just like we can afford any other thing right away. We don't have to sell green energy to finance it. We just do it. That's it. I'm not joking. This is a no-joke scenario. There's not an ounce of laugh in me. In fact, I was so distraught earlier today watching people running around clamoring for a UBI in these times, not understanding, never paying attention, too wrapped up in the herd mentality of following each other off the cliff, thinking that cash is going to help them in a productionless economy. Everybody is quarantined right now. Governments are shutting down. They're saying, unless you've got an essential business, they don't want you going to work. But yeah, UBI, sure. Sounds great. Do you understand? This is not against people having money. Hell, I'm like, give everything away for free. But it's the services. Because see, here's the thing about the federal government. It can afford anything it wants. It can never run out of dollars, ever. The lies that we've been told have been murderous. They're the reason we're not prepared for this, because we relied on market solutions to solve problems that exceed any kind of market-minded activity. There's no profit in saving the world. There's only survival. Now, people are, oh, COVID's not that big a deal. But you know what? In and of itself, maybe it's not. But this exposed the glaring weakness in our understanding of how the economic system works and our ability to make demands on what we need, as opposed to sitting there saying, sir, please give me a stipend, sir, so I can afford my bills, sir, so that you stay whole. Fuck, give me electricity for free. There's no reason the federal government can't afford that. This is not communism. You call it whatever the hell you want, man. If you're a loser and you want to call it communism, go do your thing, man. Go do your thing. This is survival. This isn't about bad choices. But then again, it never really was. That was always a racist, classist lie that people tell because they want to feel 1 inch taller than the pig slop. Just one business decision away from being a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? This is the time where we realize that our government creates pieces of paper every time it spends. They're not going to raise taxes to pay for this, folks. In fact, they're going to need to cut taxes so that we can have money in our pockets, so that once the economy does come back around, that we're not in a deep, deep depression. See, I've said forever, and a lot of really bad people and some confused people didn't understand. A lot more bad people than confused people, though. A lot of people that just like having 1 inch more than anybody else, $1 more, £1 more, one more toy. Greedy, selfish, self-centered bastards. But the fact is, we can do anything we want. There is no real constraints other than the real resources, which this picture shows you exactly what I'm talking about. We have allowed the few to hoard while the many sit there and beg at the table. But the reality is the United States government is the creator of the dollar. And the only reason why the rich are rich is because the United States government has allowed it. And the only reason why we're poor is because the United States government has allowed it. The only reason why life is as tough as it is because the United States government allowed it. Neoliberalism seeks to make us all suffer so that we will take whatever the masters of the universe decide we should have, to keep us desperate and begging at all times. This is not hyperbole. As you watch the federal government find a way to miraculously come up with money out of thin air, to come up with all the vaccines and to take care of all these other things, you're going to realize, if you have a brain and if you're listening, you will realize that the United States government creates money every time it spends. It doesn't just print more money. Taxes delete that money. So when Donald Trump talks about giving a payroll tax holiday, unfortunately, partisan politics makes people go, oh my God. But there's your basic income, right? There's your net infusion back into the economy. Now, I'm not telling you I like Donald Trump, and I think there's a lot of better ways to do it, but that's certainly not the thing to be worried about, right? The real issue is, once again, why are we worried about carrying this debt? Why don't we enter into a debt jubilee? Why don't we clear the balance sheets and start over? I mean, where's this gazillions and trillions of dollars going anyway? Why in the world are we allowing people to suffer with nooses around their neck in an economy made to keep us completely and utterly destitute? This crisis is exposing the fake bullshit that goes into that. And if you look at how we mobilized in World War II, you realize we did it then too. And we can do it again now. It has nothing to do with taxes. God, I wish you could get this through your head. I wish that light bulb moment could happen for you. I mean, you could choose to have that light bulb moment, but if it doesn't hit, you'll go back to talking nonsense about taxpayer dollars and other stupid shit. You just won't be able to help yourself. You'll go off with the herd and start talking about taxpayer dollars again. Or you won't. Or you'll let this horrible national crisis, this global crisis, change you finally so that you understand that taxes literally do not pay for spending. We need taxes. Taxes are a requirement to drive the need for the currency. But in an economy where the government is literally providing you the service, they're not making it a pass-through like the ACA. There's no ACA of national health care emergencies in this case. This needs to be a command economy where the government steps in and says, here's your food, man, take it. Here's your electricity, people, take it. You know something? We have to cut emissions anyway. We have to try to address climate change now. Because if you think COVID-19 is bad, wait till the ice caps start thawing and new bacteria get brought back into the atmosphere. Wait till new virus strains that were long frozen away come back to life. This is just one of many. Now what are we going to do? Are you going to still talk about your taxpayer dollars? Are you that guy or gal? Are you that person that would do that? Clearly, you need to understand that that's not true. Clearly, you must understand that that's not true. But we could sit there and without any effort realize that when Trump put $750 billion in new spending into the military without raising taxes, that there was no way in hell taxes were paying for that. And yet you still have progressives running around talking about taxpayer dollars. I don't know why. Perhaps you can explain why. It's moronic. It's clearly irrelevant and wrong. That's not how any of this works at all. But yet that is the going narrative. That is the going lie. Well, my hard-earned tax dollars are going to other people. That's not how it works, right? You know, you look at the roadways and you think about trucks going back and forth and you think about trains going and planes going and, you know, they've tried to shut down travel, period. They don't want to give this virus any more life than it needs before they find a way to cure it. I mean, we know for a fact that many places are shutting things down to the end of March. That's 2.5, 3 weeks. You know, some places are saying they're not reopening until tax day, like April 15th. Some people are saying it's even longer than that. I'm here to tell you we don't know how long it'll be, and it doesn't really matter. We know that we need to purge the debts because they're really irrelevant at this point. We're living on borrowed time. Climate change will bring about other catastrophes, tsunamis, arid conditions, many, many, many catastrophic events that will require us to do a similar thing to what we're doing right now, where we will need to pull together to help one another. And our federal government is not going to be running around looking for tax dollars to make it happen. Do you think people will understand it now, or do you think it's going to require another cataclysmic event for people to finally understand that literally taxes don't pay for spending at the federal level? They're just used to drive the currency. They don't actually ever get reused. The tax dollar never gets reused. It was spent into existence as a tax credit, and it was deleted from existence as a tax received. And that's the way it works. So we got to get rid of the taxes fund spending narrative immediately so that we can survive. It's obvious. You have to literally not want to get this to even have a question about what I'm saying. To even think what I'm saying there's a debate going on here, means you're not in touch with reality. You're not thinking. You're deluded. And this is so important. This has never been more important than it was even prior to this with the Green New Deal. Because the Green New Deal is not a policy set. It's really about restructuring society to deal with the new disasters coming our way. To prepare us to be in advance. We don't want to be reliant on insurance companies. Insurance companies can't handle these kinds of natural disasters. It's just not in the cards. Sovereign national governments that are currency issuing in nature have the ability to marshal the real resources. They don't require donations either. We need to be right now stepping in and making all the water pipes absolutely correct and make that water correct in Detroit. We need to make the area sanitary and make it so that people are not getting sick and that they are able to stay healthy. There's no reason we can't do it. And it doesn't require taxes to do it. It requires political will. It requires us being humans. Now that we're in this crisis, to have that moment, aha moment, and look at Puerto Rico and wonder why the hell we sent venture capitalists in there to carve it up instead of just sending our federal resources down there to rebuild it. We should have had universal health care long ago. And if you don't see that now, nothing will make you better. You are really in danger to society if you don't get this. You realize if somebody doesn't go to the doctor because they can't afford it, they are now patient zero to all of us. Be selfish in this regard and make sure everyone has full access to health care. Why in the world would anyone fight against this? When I saw the unions out in Vegas, now thank you God they worked their out and supported Bernie, etc. But when you look what happened out there in Vegas, those unions worrying about their health care that they had bargained for, and they were willing to keep that and make other people suffer. How disgusting. But see, more to the point though, why in the world are we waiting for employers to cover our health care? Why is that a part of their business model? Why is that not part of our national government's ability to take care of the general welfare? Not welfare, but the general welfare. All of our welfare is dependent upon access, not just access, but free health care as a right. A dumb society doesn't help us. We need education as a right. Why should people be forced to fight for shelter when we can provide shelter as a right? Why shouldn't we be producing food to take care of people as a right? You're going to watch it happen right now. We got no choice. Yeah, I was so upset earlier watching all the UBI crap. Is it starting to make a little bit more sense to you right now? You know, if your goal is to infuse more cash into the system, you got to ask yourself, what is your end goal? What is the purpose here? Because quite frankly, the minimum wage hasn't gone up in forever. It needs to be not just a minimum wage. We need a federal job guarantee in place to make sure that employment as a right. And when I say federal job guarantee, we're not talking about working for the man. We're talking about public sector working for each other. Redefining work, baby. So that we don't have to take shit wages and shit jobs. A UBI doesn't solve that problem. It doesn't solve really any problem other than just giving you some cash. But again, without a price anchor, without price controls, without ensuring production is there to meet the new demand, there's really nothing good about it. A temporary shot, but it doesn't even stay long enough. And then by the time it does, businesses are now subsidizing their poor wages with a UBI instead of raising wages where they belong. This is a cop-out. You see, you want to fight business, but yet you're going to give it. It's just ridiculous. I want you to understand. You know, Ron Paul, many, many moons ago, crazy Ron Paul, talked about putting the poor helped out when the Galveston issues, when all this crisis in Galveston came, the poor came out and helped. Well, what he didn't say was they were helping by gunpoint, picking up the dead. We don't need to have that. We can literally have a voluntary federal job guarantee program. And if we had it right now, we wouldn't be worrying. But again, without production there to meet demand, we're in deep, deep trouble. That's where the trouble lies. You know, Weimar Germany, another famous one where people try and say it in a nice way. It's very difficult because I get so tired of repeating myself. But in Weimar Germany, there wasn't an issue of printing money. They had lost their productive capabilities, and they had debt denominated in thing that wasn't their currency. French francs. Their debts had to be paid back to France in French francs, not German Weissmarks. And then their productive center shut itself down in an effort to try and do a general strike kind of thing. It didn't work out so well. Now, what ended up happening was Germany went into a hyperinflation. Weimar went into a hyperinflation. Why do you think people would talk about it being about printing money? Do you think people just don't know any better and they just say things? They say something their buddy said? Who's pumping these lies out there? I mean, seriously. But therein which lies the rub. In Germany, you couldn't buy a loaf of bread with 1 million of these Reichsmarks. The currency was useless because the production hadn't met the demand. What do you think about this? I mean, I want you to ask yourself deep questions. I want you to ask yourself, here we are in crisis. Do you still believe that printing money is causing hyperinflation? Or do you now understand it's these empty shelves, it's a lack of production to meet demand? And there's many other factors like political corruption and a lack of a stable government and a lack of a stable economy. Well, we're in the middle of a lack of a stable economy right now. And we have zero production. Well, not zero, but very limited. People are strapped with huge amounts of debt. Instead of making people, here's a payment, a UBI, or here's a basic income payment, now go pay your bills with it. Why the hell doesn't the government use its power and just say, those debts are canceled, or we'll pay it directly? Because see, what happens is when those prices go up, somebody's got to cover that, and they will go up. Healthcare costs will go up in different ways when there's a scarcity. When there's a scarcity around any of these things. Scarcity always breeds higher prices because there's competition for them, and that drives the price up. So who better to handle a price fluctuation than the currency issuing federal government, who is the price setter by nature? We can't handle the ebbs and flows of the business cycle on our own. We are not currency issuers. And even with a UBI, I mean, it would have to be such a massive UBI on one hand. And number two, the production would need to meet it. And it's not. And this should shoot a bullet, a lethal silver bullet through the heart of the liars who talk about automation displacing all workers. It's a shameful lie. And we see it in spades right now. We're at a difficult place. I don't know what more to say about that. It seems like we have an opportunity right here. We have an opportunity. We're in the middle of an election cycle. You have to ask yourself, which candidate do you think has the most robust spending plan that's fit with your new knowledge, the knowledge you just picked up tonight that you didn't realize the government can create money out of thin air and does every time it spends? Is there a candidate with a bold vision? If there is, think about it. Why would anyone support someone that didn't have a bold vision, especially now that we're in the midst of a crisis like this? Who in the right mind would support an austerity candidate, a candidate that doesn't spend on the people, who puts business first? Think about this for a minute. Think about it. Is there a candidate out there? Is there anyone out there that's got bold policy prescriptions that can meet the needs of a disaster like what we're living, a national pandemic? Is there a way forward that addresses a pandemic like this, that understands the needs of the people and is willing to take bold action to make everyone whole? Think about what I'm saying. Don't you kind of feel a little weird now, seeing how many people are pushing a UBI, given what we know the powers of the federal government are? Why would we accept a neoliberal solution to a global pandemic, a market-based solution? Here's money, go find it on the open market. Why would we accept that from anyone in a progressive circle? Why would we allow them to call themselves a progressive by pushing forward a market-based solution in a global pandemic? Why would we allow that to have any bearing or merit? Why would we allow that person to have any standing in our community? A global pandemic. The United States government has infinite powers over the dollar. It is the creator of the dollar. It can do whatever it wants, and it can marshal the production needed to meet the demands of the people. And that's not just the people that are rich and white and have everything going for them. That's every man, woman, and child. There is no reason for anyone to ever be left behind. You can call it whatever you want. If some asshole decides to call it communism or socialism, they're an idiot. It doesn't matter what you call it. The fact is, the United States government has the infinite power of the dollar to do whatever it wants, to marshal this economy in a way that serves everyone's needs. And I ask you again, my friends, is there a candidate that is offering up solutions that fit with what I'm talking about within a global pandemic and beyond? Is there anyone talking about eliminating student debt and not keeping it in there for market-based solutions? Is there anyone advocating healthcare as a right instead of advocating for market-based solutions? Is there anyone offering up housing and childcare as a right instead of offering up market-based solutions? Is there anyone out there that's putting the people first and not just giving you cash to go out and find a market-based solution? Is there anyone out there? I think there might be. You'll have to catch me on another show when I'm talking about that specifically. But you can use your head. There's an awful lot of candidates that aren't. And this isn't even political. This is about survival right now, friends. We just happen to still have electricity, and we have cool video equipment, and we have a nice green screen with some props and shit. Have a decent mic and all that stuff. But in reality, I'm just telling you what it is 24/7 now. You need to know this inside and out. Inside and out. There should never be any equivocation ever again about bold policy prescriptions. Alternative media, I'm talking to you. I'm going to have a one-on-many conversation quickly with my friends in alternative media. You should know by now that the United States government can provide for all of our needs. You should know by now that taxes literally don't fund spending, and you shouldn't say it on your shows anymore. You should know by now that the United States government can do huge, bold policies for the people without raising taxes. You should never ask again, how are we going to pay for it, ever again? And candidates that don't support the message I'm talking about are literally not worth your time supporting, because they are putting a gun to all of our heads. This is not political at all. I'm telling you literally, the way the system works, the way all fiat systems work, you're never going to run out of cash. You can never run out of cash. You can never run out of inches, pounds. And the United States dollar is simply an inch or a pound. It's a unit of measure, and it can never run out of them. It's public money. It's not private banksters and all the other bullshit. They just happen to have free license because that's what neoliberals do. When this pandemic is over and we're sitting there thinking we got it going on, don't go back to sleep. Remember what I'm talking to you about. This is the progressive agenda. This is the proof in the pudding. This is exactly what you claim to have wanted and what you are fighting for. And now you have proof that you can do it, that it's not pie in the sky. You imagine Hillary Clinton and others from yesteryear talking about this stuff being pie in the sky? You imagine bad people say, well, you just want free stuff? Imagine awful people saying that. Now that we know that's bullshit. I mean, you know it in spades, it's bullshit. What are you going to do with that knowledge? Are you going to take action? Are you going to act as if? Are you going to start a revolution? Are you going to make good on the political revolution? Is it going to be not me, us? Are you going to make something happen? When you put your fist in the air, does it matter? Do you mean it? Are we in solidarity? Or are you going to go back to sleep and thinking it's taxpayer dollars and only taxpayers are good and other people are making bad decisions? What's it going to be? It should get off the pot time, because it's real now. A global pandemic is forcing you into a place of making a new reality. You're having to recognize the world for what it is. No more taxpayer dollars. Those that say it, you could spot them. It's like a big neon sign. I don't understand what the fuck's going on. Neon light. Boo, boo, boo. $750 billion for the military without a nickel raised in taxes. Now we got a global pandemic, and you will not see a nickel raised in taxes. In fact, you'll hear them talk about eliminating taxes and still doing this stuff. And before you say something about the stupid national debt, all the national debt is the United States dollars that have not been taxed. They're sitting out there in the economy. You get rid of the national debt, you get rid of all the dollars in the economy. That's it. Dollars are credits. Dollars are not debt in the sense of what you think they are. They're just the other side of the ledger. Since the government printed a liability and put it out there, when it comes back, it clears the liability. That's it. Think about all the different things we could do. If you redefine work in a green economy, what does that look like? If you give universal child care for free as a right, what does that do to your life? How does that change your circumstances? If you can wake up and get out of bed and walk down the street to your local neighborhood to work and do well, how different is that for you? What if we started caring about community again? What if we started looking after each other instead of trying to get a little bit more, instead of hoarding toilet paper? What if we all had enough? This isn't pie in the sky anymore, my friends. The veil has been lifted. You no longer have the ability to say you don't know. You no longer have the ability to say you haven't been told. It's time for us to embrace this reality we're in and make sure that no one is left behind. That we make sure that we are compassionate and caring, and that we use the public purse for all of our goods. Not just a few, but all. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives, Real Progress in Action, and the podcast Macro and Cheese. And I hope you'll listen to our podcast because we talk about this stuff all the time, and I have the experts on. I enjoy talking about this, but I'm not the expert. I am just a lay person that learned this stuff. Yeah, I've learned it better than most. There are bigger and better experts out there that are on my shows, and I hope you guys check them out. I'm Steve Grumbine again, with Real Progressives, Real Progress in Action, and Macro and Cheese, hoping we all get through this pandemic together and that we learn something and make the world a better place. I'm out.